All right, so this is lesson 3.4, and this is how to remove items from lists. And if you remember, a list is a collection of items that are stored inside of a variable. The list can contain numbers, strings, or a combination of both. The only catch is that they should be related in some way. All that information should be related somehow. It doesn't matter how it is, but you can have number strings, back and forth, whatever, inside that list, inside that variable. But there's nothing that can be, there's no restrictions on the types that can be stored inside of the list. So during this lesson, we're going to look at how to perform a number of tasks. In this case, we're not going to be adding or sorting. We're going to be removing items from lists. So hopefully you can see by now that lists are dynamic structures. You can change them, you can modify them, you can start with an empty one and then fill it full of information. And that's what we've learned up to this point, is inserting list items into the list, appending or adding an item to the list. But one of the very useful things is being able to remove items if you no longer need them. So in this case, what we're looking at is removing the first one. We're going to be looking at removing items by their position. And to do this, all we have to do is know an index value. So if we know that this is a list that is 3 items long, we can remove an item in that list just by using its index value. So I'm going to jump over to Python. There we go. And I'm going to create a new file. Move it right there. I'm going to file. I want to save this file as not there. Lists and tuples. There we go. And I'm going to click on one of the previous ones, and this is number 4. Remove list items. There we go. I forget what I called it down here. Let's check really quick. Remove items. I'm going to leave list on there too. That works. So I'm going to hit save. Now you can see that that file has been saved successfully. And I've already copied this part, so I'm going to paste that right into here. And it didn't go, so I'm going to copy it again, paste it again. There we go. And you can see that I have a list. It has 3 items in it. And what I'm going to do is remove the first item from the list. But because I didn't have it in here, I want to do a print dogs. Man, oh man. There we go. So I'm going to print the list first. I'm going to delete the first item and then print it again so you can see exactly what's happening. So when I hit Command S to save, and then File, and then Run Module, you'll see that it's going to print the dogs. There's 3 items in it. And then I delete dog 0, the dog at index position 0, and I am left with 2. And I could continue to do that if I wanted to. Del dogs bracket 0, because the second one right here, index position number 1, is now index position 0 because it got moved over. So when I hit that and then print dogs, save it, run the module, you'll see that I'm only left with one more dog in the list. So I'm going to delete that group. Save it. Remove item by position. And I'm hopeful that right now you will hit pause. You'll go out to Python, copy the same code, practice the same things. That way you can see how it works on your interpreter. And hopefully it will do exactly the same thing. Again, like I've said before in the these practice and lesson problems that after you complete one, I would do a quick comment that tells what that one is, and then do the triple quotes to comment multiple lines and comment out that code, but you can use it again. You could always take this and use it for something we do a little bit later. So there's that one. The next one we're going to be looking at, there we go. Don't know how that happened, but it did. There we go. The next one we're going to be looking at is removing items by values. So if we know the value of a specific let's do that. If we know the value of a specific item in the list, so this one is Australian cattle dog. You can see that that matches one of these. I can remove, so I'm not deleting it this time. I'm taking dogs. I'm using a method called remove. So it's going to search the whole list, find something that matches this one, and then remove it. When I save and I hit run, you'll see now Australian cattle dog has been removed from this list. It is no longer in the list. I can't get it back. But the catch is that if there are more than one, so here's another example. I'll have to copy. Let me triple around this. So this one has 2 letter A's, 2 letter B's, 2 letter C's. So it's a double copy of the ABC there. And it's going to remove the letter A. You can see there's the list, the variable name, letters. I'm going to hit letters.remove, and I'm looking for A. When I run it, you'll see it takes out the first one, but there is a second one in there. And so when you use the remove, it will only remove the first item with a value from that list. If you have multiple items in the same value, you'll have to have some items left on the list, or you can use a loop to go through and remove those items until they no longer exist. And we'll look at some of that looping and conditional stuff a little bit later. But that's to use the remove function. We can remove specific items from our lists based on their values. So scrolling down here, we're going to look at how to remove items from the list, and this is a neat thing called popping. And so every programming language has some way of doing this very similar technique, and what it does is it removes the last item that you have added to the list. And so in this case, what it's going to do is going to pop off the last dog in this case. And so we have the 3 that have been added, and we're going to take the last dog equals that item, and it's going to print that to show you which one it's pulling off, but then it's also going to print the list so you only see the first 2 items. So popping is basically like just taking a pair of scissors and lopping off that last item inside the list. So to demonstrate that, we're going to copy this over to Python. And again, I'm going to triple quote around this. That way we have that one. And I would even come up here and say move items by, what do we have on there? By value. There we go. And this is popping item off lists. Quote it. Paste it. So now you can see I have my list of dogs. I have the 3 there. The last dog, this is a new variable it's creating just to show you which one it's popping off, which should be the Labrador Retriever. And then it's going to print off the last dog and the list of dogs. So I save it. I come over here and hit run. You'll see that Labrador Retriever is the dog that's getting popped off the end of the list, and I'm left with these two items right there. So this is what they call a first in, last out approach, and the first item in the list would be the last item process. So if I'm popping items off this list and Border Collie was the first one added, it will be the very last one that I remove. So it's the first one in, the last one out. And we could actually pop any item by telling it which item using the index, so if we wanted to always the first one in is the first one out, we could do it just the opposite of the default by entering a index value of 0, and so every time it loops through this, it would take off the first item, and then it would remove that one. So Australian Cattle Dog would be the first item. The next time it loops through, and then remove that one, and then Labrador Retriever would be the only item on there, but it'd be the very first item, and it would remove that as well. So we get into lists and looping. We can always because we've already looked at the length of the list in the previous lesson, we could say the length of the list is whatever. And so as long as the list is less than, or the list is still, it doesn't equal the total length of the list there, as we're removing items, we can continue to remove and not have to worry about errors. And we'll look at some problems with that a little bit later. I'm going to show you the first in, first out version of this. So I'm going to say first in, last out. There's the triple quotes. And this is the first in, first out example. So I hit save. Whoop. Run module. You'll see that Border Collie, because it's the first thing on the list, is going to be removed. And if I did this a couple more times, I would end up with 0 items left, because it would remove all of the them in order that they were submitted. So that's how to do the first in, first out version of this. So the lesson here, the practice part for this, practice problem number 1. There's only one practice problem this time, and what we're doing here is we're going to create a list that includes the names of 4 famous people. You're going to print that list using the for loop, and so you'll have each item printed out on a separate line, and then you're going to remove the items from the list, and you have to print out the list so you can see that something has been removed for each time. So you have 4 different ways to do it. You're going to pop off the last item from the list. You're going to pop off any item except for the last item. So if you have 4 and you've popped 1, you have 3. So you can remove the first or the second one using the index value. You're going to remove an item using its position, and then remove the last item by using its value. So those are the 4 ways. And so you'll have the code, and after each time you will make sure you print out the list so you can see which values are remaining, and you can see that the removal technique was successful. At the end of the program, outside of the loop, you want to print out a message that says there are no more famous people left on your list, and then print your list just to prove that it's empty. And all it'll do is the last line in the code will print out. Let me see if I can make it. There we go. It'll just do 2 square brackets. So that's the practice problem this time. There's just the one, and you're using a list and removing items from that list. So if you have any questions as you go throughout this, let me know. I am more than happy to help, and good luck.